So while James eats his dinner, I'm going to show you how to make a really easy veggie burger. And what I've done here is one of the first veggie burgers, or maybe the first one I ever made, I used chili powder, oregano, soy sauce. I think that's about it. And so what's in chili powder? There you go. So given that, I put 2 cloves in and ground them up in the coffee grinder. I put, so that's there, and there was a little bit of wakame left in my coffee grinder, so that's going in there. And I put cumin and coriander, more cumin than coriander, and about the same amount of oregano as cumin, and the same amount of mustard as coriander. You can get by me and sit. And
I just didn't want to step on your dress.
That's okay. And then celery seed. So that's all that I have in my spice thing. And how I add the heat is I put actual jalapeno in there. But I only put 1 in and mince that up. So we'll see how that goes. Oh, I should show you what it looks like. So in here I have beans. Mostly it's pinto, which I cooked in the kimchi broth, so that's nice and flavorful. And then I minced up 2 small yellow onions with about a head of garlic and 1 jalapeno, red jalapeno, and I then I dried that on some parchment somewhat for a couple hours, like in my oven, which I use as a dehydrator. So it's not, the oven isn't on, it's just a pilot light heating it, and the moisture is fairly, like, it's not soppy anymore, it's just kind of sticky. And then I put the pulp from 1 pound of kale, which we juiced, so that's minced up in the food processor. And then I put maybe about 1/3 as much pecan ground up as the beans, so quite a bit of pecan in there. So I am going to show you how I make the veggie burger, and I do not measure out the spices ahead of time, and here's why. You go ahead and eat, darling, unless, is it too hot still?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so
It's gonna be just right.
usually I sit in front of the TV. So this is how I always used to make my veggie burgers. It's how I still do. Sit in front of the TV and mix her up. And then when I'm done making my...
If it's a thriller, it gets really mixed up, right?
Yeah. So you can put other, like I put mustard powder in here because I like the flavor of mustard on a burger. And I didn't put any soy sauce in because I cooked the beans with the kimchi broth, and that's salty, right? And it tastes good. I had some, and that's what James is having for his soup, is the remainder of the broth from cooking the beans and from the kimchi. So how does that taste?
Tastes pretty good.
Tastes pretty good.
A little
so
hot.
And that's just all that is the broth from the kimchi and the beans cooked that he's eating. So it makes a decent soup even just like that. But you stick in some, like, if you're having to work, this is a great meal to make, say on Sunday in the slow cooker, right? You do your kimchi on Saturday, you have your broth left over, and you cook the beans, and then on Sunday you whip this up, and then you have this whole tub for the whole week. And that way, I mean, the soup is easy if you're on a budget, and say you're going to the food bank and you're a young person and you're trying to work somehow and feed your family. Well, this is a great meal for your family because it's pretty healthy. It's stuff you should be able to afford, even if you're going to the food bank and you're having to, like, I was given these beans, which I'm very grateful for. Usually we have to buy them, and I definitely had to buy the pecans. So you may not be using pecans, you may be using breadcrumbs if you're going to the food bank, because, or even if you're just working poor. That's what I had to use a lot of the time. And now I just realized, well, I don't want to cheap out on nutrition, because that's, if you're going to put your money anywhere, that's where you put it. But what I'm going to say about the soup is you can add a can of mixed vegetables or something to that, or some frozen vegetable medley. Stir that into the broth, and there you go. That's pretty easy. Or some noodles, you know, whatever. It's not hard. And I do not measure the spices out this way. I just work with the spices in the, while I'm going, I have the spices, and then I just keep mixing them through, because I will mix this up and show you. That's probably not going to be nearly enough spices, just so you know. I'll need, but I was just giving you a proportion kind of example, and I could use way more kale pulp in this. Way. You'll see what I'm saying. I'll get a nice green flecks in this, but it'll just be pretty much for show, because I can hide a lot more pulp in here. If I can stick it together still with the pulp, then it's fine. You just keep adding that as you go too. So this is just what I'm using here. Now, some types of beans you'll find are not nearly as sticky as others, like chickpeas. Chickpeas are not very sticky.
They seem to be pretty dry.
They're very dry.
How about big kidney beans? Not quite as
They're
bad?
Sticky.
Why?
It's sticky, and pintos are sticky. So I don't need to add any other kind of sticky thing into here. But if I were using chickpeas, I'd have to add something else. So, and that might be breadcrumbs or anyway. But you don't, if you're using pintos or kidneys, you do not have to add sticky. So, and I've seen a lot of recipes for breadcrumbs just using them wet. No, what you do to make breadcrumbs is you get your, one thing that you can always get when you're poor and on a budget, and I didn't know this growing up because my family hadn't taught me how to live poor. We were always living in appearance as though we were middle class, but we were not. So my mom would make sure that we had, that we were living in a nicer neighborhood or something like that, you know, so we were not living with the kind of people I started hanging out with when I was a teenager. But anyway, because I figured, well, everyone would be about the same. But, so, I don't know, we were kind of isolated from reality. But, so I got out on my own, and I did not know how to do things, and I'd be going out and buying inexpensive breads and stuff like that, and not realizing if you're poor, you can get free bread anywhere. There's so much free bread available. It's basically grocery stores seem to make it just to have the fragrance of bread in their store, so you'll be more inclined to think that things are made fresh there, when really nothing is. Almost, it's the bread is baked there, and but I mean most of the store is devoted to things in boxes and packaging that was
like
definitely not made like that. Those crackers are terrible.
Yep.
Anyway, I could show you this. This is very well stuck together now. But what I'm going to tell you is, first, all of this stuff is cooked. See, this is the real benefit when you're on your own. One of the first things I learned how to make was veggie burger when I got out on my own as an adult, because
a lot cheaper than real burgers.
So cheap.
Yep.
And
this
sits in the fridge just like this for like, you don't pour them into patties or anything. You just stick the lid on it and stick it in the fridge for the week. And then while you're going to school or whatever, you just whip up your patty just before you fry it in the frying pan, and away you go. This is like the most instant meal, and it's healthy. So, I mean, people
How about
saying
preparation time? Fairly good for that too.
it takes almost no time.
Well, there you go.
It takes about as much time. Okay, so when you're frying your patty, it takes about as much time to fry a patty as it does to fry an egg or
I'm just
make
talking
some
about
toast.
this preparation. But at least you can find time to do it. And then when you're strapped for time, getting ready for work.
You cook the beans in the slow cooker. Like the beans, it's when you make things in the slow cooker, it's like they're cooking themselves. And I didn't realize that when I was a young adult either. So here I was trying to, you know, soak the beans overnight in the fridge, cook them in the pot and all that time. No, you use a slow cooker. It takes almost no time. And well, a lot of people like using pressure cookers, which takes less time. But I like slow. So you can roll them into pretty little balls because they stick together really well with the beans. So, or patties. This is very easy mix.
It almost looks like a marble.
Yeah. Pretty. So, eat it just like that. And all I can really taste is for the most part, is the kimchi flavoring, which is delicious. But I would like, well, you see what you think. And the onions and the garlic but if you want, it can stay like this, or I can add more seasoning. He likes it like this. James doesn't like things very spicy. So
that's why I broke out this fake food. There's a little hot on it. And the weird thing is it's not burning my mouth, but it's burning down here. Different spices affect different things. Yeah.
So anyway, you make a patty. You can make this as thin as you want. It's going to stick together because the pinto beans, they really stick together. So, and that will hold together no matter what you do with it. I could play frisbee with this. It's going to hold together fairly well. So anyway, yeah. So people saying, oh, I don't know how to make a veggie burger that holds together. Really? Easiest thing in the world.
You can put that in a frying pan and flip it around.
Exactly. So this fries in the frying pan really well, and this barbecues really well. So you can make this. Why I did this, making the kimchi broth into burgers, is showing you one of the healthiest things you can eat is kimchi. It's so healthy, so good for you. And if you're a fish eater, fine, make it with fish. If you're not, the way I've been making it with the wakame and stuff, I think it's great. And then you can make soup out of it if you're making kimchi, say in the fall, or you can make burgers with the broth, or you can make all sorts of things. You could make a fried rice for putting in tacos or burritos, whatever, with the broth. Cook it like that, and then put some other things in it, you know, appropriate spices, whatever. There's a lot of things you could do with it. Or you could make, in the fall, you want to make cabbage rolls. Well, that broth works out really nice for that. So, there's a lot of things you can do with that broth from soaking the kimchi, the cabbage. And this is a great summertime use for it, the patties, because you're probably out there wanting to barbecue. Now, I'm going to say, I used to put a lot of ground nuts into my burger patties, like this. But I no longer do, because I'm going to have to, if I want to fry this and not worry about the heat so much, what I can do is you can put this in a food dehydrator and cook it food dehydrator style, or in the oven like I do with no heat, just pile it like, it'll work. Or, because this stuff is already cooked, the beans, everything in here is cooked. This, I can eat this just like this if I want to, but usually people want to crisp up the outside. Okay, so because I put the pecans in here, I don't want to heat up the burger too much, is what I'm saying. So I'll have to fry this over a low heat so that I don't heat up the pecans in there very much, because you shouldn't be heating up stuff like that very much at all. But
nuts generally,
yeah,
is that what you're saying?
Yeah, besides,
does that
like,
ruin
the
the value, or is it, you know, actively unhealthy?
It's actively unhealthy. So things like, some things can take the heat better.
It's the fats.
Some nuts, but I don't know. I've heard that macadamia nuts are okay for cooking with. I'm not sure. And coconut, I suppose. Everyone knows that's fine for cooking with. But again, you really need to be eating huge amounts of saturated fat. So anyway, so that's that. And I guess that's my burger. So as much seasoning as you saw, that's how much went into that. So, and James said yay. I would have said more, but I know my husband's gonna like eating this. So for me, all I can really taste is the garlic, the onions, the kimchi seasoning, and I would have liked to taste more of the oregano and cumin, but I could put that in my own patties and mix it up. And that's another thing you can do while you go. So if you make a basic sort of mix, and then you can add other things to it. So say halfway through the week you're like, I don't want to eat that same burger. Well, you can add some minced up parsley to the mix, or some minced up dill, or dried dill. It's usually better to use the dried, like I showed using fresh here, onions and garlic, but you can use garlic powder, you can use onion powder. It's actually easier to work with, because the moisture is your enemy with the burger mixes. So,
it makes it runny.
Yeah, it won't stick together. Yeah. So you got to get rid of that.
You got to get the good balance. It's too dry.
No, yeah, it just takes some practice, honestly. But yeah, you want some sticky in there, but not sticky like water. That doesn't work. It just makes it fall apart.
Yeah.
So I thought that at the beginning. I tried that, thinking, oh well, because if you try mixing it with a bean, like a sticky bean, like a pinto, then it works really well, sticks really well together, and you're like, oh well, that seems moister than, say, a chickpea. It's dry. So you think, oh well, I'll add more water, and no, that doesn't work. So so yeah, a good vegan burger, easy to make, and
the trick now is to find a bun that's relatively healthy. You know what I'm saying? Because usually it's just the garbageous breads go into buns, hamburger buns, hot dog buns.
Well, I can make us some buns if you like.
No, don't go to extra effort. There are some buns out there that are whole wheat. I mean, they're not the greatest, but
no, we've shown some that have been okay. It's just hard when you're getting free bread.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to find quality stuff.
It's easy to find quantity stuff.
Yes.
But I'm sure they just chuck a ton of that stuff out.
Yeah.
Because it seems to sit on the shelf, right? It's funny how people go for the white breads now. You know, when I was a kid back in the 70s, I started going after whole wheat bread.
Oh, really?
People have known, of course. Mm-hmm. You know, the heavier the better, you know. I figured if I could assault someone with a loaf of bread, it was good.
Well, I mean, this is what people aren't given
information
that much. Well, they don't.
They don't get it in school. That's for sure.
No, you're actually taught not to ask questions in school, and to pretend like you already know the answer. That's the upbringing. That's really what you're taught to do. So you act like you already know it, and you're not inclined to look for the answer. So we are actively taught not to be lifelong learners in school, and so people don't look. They don't know, and all they're going by is they're staying children forever. Their tastes are childlike, so they're eating a lot of sugar, they're eating a lot of the white bread and stuff like that, the same sort of things that they wanted to eat when they were little children. And their palates have not matured, and they have not matured. They've stayed children in many, many ways.
You know, I was figuring that was a universal thing, always applied, but it's not the case. People way back when actually made real food, and insisted their kids ate real food. Nowadays, everyone's a kid, and they're not raising kids anymore, right? So kids are like,
they stay children.
Kids are kids, but only worse. They're not. That's why I'm in a class now where I'd say all but one of the women, it's like about 15 or 16, are seriously overweight. And it's a university class, and it's like, if you're in the class and watching this, I feel for you, you know, like I'm not making fun of you or anything like that. It's our society. But there'd be between 18 and 22, something like that. Some a little bit older, perhaps, but it's appalling. It's like a plague. It's like an epidemic. Diabetes is just going to whack them.
But yeah, people don't look, rates. And the food, actual nutritious food, for the most part, it's not available. So you go to the supermarket or whatever. This bread came from Costco. It's Costco garlic bread, which James likes to eat.
I like it well enough. There's garlic bread. It's way better. But
we get it free.
Is lousy.
You really wouldn't buy it if you had to buy it, would you?
Absolutely.
No. So we get it free, so he likes to eat it. And so I feed it to him, and I think, well, we put the tomatoes on it, at least there's some food there, right? But the bread itself, it used to be that Costco made their garlic bread out of sourdough crumbs. So they were recycling breadcrumbs from sourdough to make their garlic bread. And at least you're getting sourdough crumbs out of it, right? But now it's just flour. It doesn't even say what kind of flour, so...
You gotta assume the word. Now, they do have a fair amount of garlic. They'll have hunks of garlic.
Yeah, but it tastes like it's pickled.
Yeah, something like that. I think almost all of the goodness would be cooked out of it, right, or pickled out of it. I think you're right. I wonder why they were whole and stuff like that. Who knows what sort of process they've been through. But
anyway,
I almost want to spit them out. They've been so cooked. I mean, there's huge hunks of garlic like this that I can down.
Yeah.
You know, which means that there's almost no
medicinal. Yeah, exactly, because it tastes. Otherwise,
it's mild
it would
enough
taste
for me
hot
to take.
It would make you
like this stuff was burning me on the way down. That's why I had to get those crackers. And
I
stuff
see.
Like that. So you ate some of that, right, or did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know it wasn't hot.
No.
Yeah. So I'm very susceptible to hot, and if I can down a full garlic bowl, you know, there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.